18th Annual Lobby Day. Gun owners of all races and creeds from Virginia and across the country are here to stand in solidarity against gun control. I want to thank all of you for coming out on such a cold day.
Well, we won't back down. We're gonna stand our ground. We know you're trying to open the gates of hell, but we won't back down. So yes, we'll stand our ground. We won't be pushed around. We must keep you from putting our kids in the ground, so we can't stand down. No, we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't stand down, brother. So we'll stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. 'Cause we know what's right. And we got plenty of fight. And if you think you're gonna keep pushing us around, well, you'll lose that crown. 'Cause we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. You know, it's pretty clear that these lunatics think they have the right to strip us of our rights of self-defense. And if they're willing to do that, what else are they willing to do? We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. No, we won't back down. Back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. So we won't back down. No, we won't back down. Virginians, you won't fight this fight alone.
Hello, everybody. Ed Levine coming to you here with Philip Van Cleve and Pat Webb, our Secretary and Treasurer. And we just want to welcome you to our YouTube Live and general meeting of the VCDL. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, welcome everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I would be lying if I said I didn't miss the in-person meetings, but this is good. And even if we do that, when we start the in-person, we're going to continue to do this so that we can reach out to those of you that don't live near one of the in-person meetings. And a good portion of the state never did. So,
and what Philip and I talked about, and something that Joanna, one of our executive members, beats me up about all the time, is I never know when the meetings are going to be. So in addition to whenever we have one magically, we're going to have them every third Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. And then maybe some thrown in between, but at least every third Thursday, 8 p.m. on the YouTube channel. We're not broadcasting on Facebook anymore. And we might be very shortly broadcasting on our LinkedIn channel. So stay tuned to that as well. Hi, Pat.
Hi. I'm seeing people from all over the state. I see Stanton and Wythe County, and I hope I said that right. Saw a couple of other places. So it looks like we've got people from all around the state. And that's one of the great things about these virtual meetings is that people don't have to travel all the way to Northern Virginia or Richmond. We can reach all around.
I saw some in there for New York too at the beginning.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other thing from around the country even. And we welcome everybody. We're all in this fight. What affects one of us is going to affect all of us.
Absolutely.
As it moves around the country, the battle is on. The elections didn't go well, so we've there was some articles I put in the VA alert that went out. The last one that went out that talks about our beloved new president and what he's doing, talking about doing to the Second Amendment. So we're going to see how that shapes up. Again, I know a lot of people were, really worried about HR 127. I think everybody out there has probably gotten 50 emails by now on the horrors in that. And it truly is one of the most monstrous bills I've ever seen. But I also like to have reality thrown in, and reality looking at it. Reality's a train going by Pat's place. I thought dogs were bad. I like to think it all of a sudden you see this train go through and Pat disappears.
It's the reality train.
Told you not to put your camera on the tracks. So
I thought the train got acquitted.
But HR 127 has no co-sponsors, so nobody wants to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I think they're afraid if they get too close to crazy Sheila Jackson Lee that they might get crazy like she is. So, but that's a bill we should always keep our eyes on. But keep in mind, for years in the Congress, there was a guy that put in a bill almost every year to repeal the Second Amendment. It never went anywhere. So one could get all upset and worry about it. But that doesn't mean, again, we ignore this stuff. But I don't want to waste time spinning wheels on something that I don't think is going to go anywhere. If it looks
That's
like
just so you can tell his anti-gun base. Well, I tried.
Yeah.
Right. And the one thing we have to keep in mind too, that every year there's a bill like that that's thrown in and they use it as leverage. It's kind of like throwing the book at somebody and then dropping all the charges, but the ones they wanted in the first place. So things like that are thrown out there so that when they do get what they really want passed, everybody says, oh, we dodged the bullet. We only got this one instead of getting a bunch of really bad stuff. So keep your guard up. The mantra is no gun control, not no more gun control or just a little gun control, but no gun control. That's what we're here for.
They only want a little bit of gun control every year, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because then you have somebody one of the other side had her daughter, Lori Haas's daughter was shot, but she was wounded. She was out of the hospital the same day. She really wasn't meant to die that day, and that was great. Just flesh wounds, but the shooter didn't know that. And if you've ever had your scalp cut, you'd know how that bleeds. So it looked like he killed her, and he hadn't, and she survived, which was great. So her mom, got involved in gun control with the idea that she wanted to avoid this happening again, something like that. So what does she testify on? Muzzle loaders, and raising all kinds of questions about how muzzle loaders need to go through background checks because they've been used in so many mass shootings, I guess.
She didn't just get involved in gun control; she got involved in paid gun control.
Oh yeah, she's paid lobbyist now. Oh, and that's the other thing that was irking is that they put her on the crime commission, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan commission set up for the government to look at issues dealing with crime and sentencing and stuff like that. And they put her on a paid lobbyist.
And so they asked you to be on that crime commission too, right, Philip?
Oh yeah, you bet. They sure did ask me. You wouldn't want any balance in there. But so we know if guns come up to the crime commission, what she's going to say, you already know that because she's paid to say. If she doesn't say that, she doesn't get a paycheck. So anyhow, But the muzzleloader bill did manage to clear committee. What this is, some of you aren't hunters. Some of you have never really dealt with muzzleloaders. I've never, dealt with a muzzleloader directly, but I understand what the issue was. A muzzleloader is defined as a gun where you put the powder down the muzzle, and then you put the bullet down the muzzle. You cram all that down together and put basically a cap on the other end, a primer, and then you fire it. Well, there's a certain amount of danger to that if you try to reload too quickly. If there's a burning ember in the bottom of that barrel and you dump the gunpowder in, you're in for a very unpleasant surprise. So a company came up with the concept of what they call a fire stick, which is really the gunpowder enclosed in a plastic tube. Now, what the difference is that you have to take, rather than putting the powder down the muzzle, you actually open the gun, and it's a new design of muzzleloader where you push the fire stick into the breech, and you still have to ram the ball or the bullet down the muzzle like you had to do before, but it's how you load the gunpowder that's different. So you still have to go through the muzzle loading thing. It's just that you don't do it with the gunpowder too. And this has another benefit besides it being safe, is it allows you to unload a muzzle loader. For those of you that haven't shot a muzzle loader, there's two ways to unload. One is to fire it, and that can be really inconvenient. Or number two is that there's a tool that lets you go in and get a hold of the bullet and pull it out. Then you can dump everything else out. But that's got to screw into the lead bullet, and that may or may not get in there properly. It's a messy experience, and you really don't want your hand down the muzzle of one of these things just in case something were to go wrong. Anyhow, that's all it was, and that was a bill to allow that new technology for hunting. And the other side was upset that these guns are getting so accurate. They're like basically the same thing as a modern day gun, blah blah blah, all said by people that don't know anything about guns. So that bill did make it out. So that was one that we're supporting.
So what the problem was that Virginia law specified that for it to qualify as a muzzle loader, both the powder and the bullet had to be loaded from the muzzle end. And this bill that's moving through the General Assembly right now brings the definition of muzzleloader in line with the federal definition and allows for the modern inline muzzle loading guns that you can load the way that Philip was describing. And it makes it safer in a lot of ways. It makes it less likely that you'll double charge the gun. It makes it easier to unload if you're hunting and didn't get a chance to shoot at some game. You don't have to shoot the gun to unload it. It makes it easier to fix a problem if your powder, say, you had some oil in the gun and the gun didn't go off. So there's any number of reasons why it makes it more safer, and it doesn't affect the function of the gun. You still have to load one shot from the muzzle at a time and then reload before you can take another shot. So it still falls under that primitive weapon.
I would say that it makes it impossible to do a double charge.
So how did Dave Brown
really stick in one of those little?
As an organization, we owe Dave Brown an apology. He says he's from Springfield, but he said he worked with Bruce Jackson.
Oh. Man, sometimes you're just out of luck.
And he said it must have been important because he said it twice. So Benjamin here has a question about muzzle loaders that I don't know the answer to. My muzzle loader would allow unscrewing the breech block to dump the powder and then push the bullet out of the breech. Is it legally considered unloaded if I remove the primer?
It isn't really defined very well in Virginia code. The only place it is defined or loaded is defined in the hunting section of the code, and that's it. It's in one of the regulations. It's not actually in the regular law.
Right.
But I don't know about muzzle loaders. I think it's probably in there, but at the time I was digging through it, I was only worried about modern regular guns. So I didn't really pay any attention to what it might have said about that.
Yeah, Benjamin, you'll find that in the hunting regulations, which you can find online at gooutdoorsvirginia.gov, I think or .com. So or the DGIF website will have the hunting regulations, and you can pull it up, and it's actually a searchable file. I think that if the primer is not on there, it's considered unloaded, but I'm not positive. So go online and check that.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes things aren't the way you think they should be. Logic doesn't always apply to gun control, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely check. I'll have to investigate that because it's a good question. I should know the answer to it for future things. So let's take a gander at the bills gun bills that are out there. So we've had two bills pass the House and the Senate that are going to the governor's desk so far. Now, there's more on the way, but two have passed. One is pro-gun, one is anti-gun. So right now it's 50-50. The one that anti-gun was Delegate Lopez, who hates guns, hates gun owners, doesn't know anything about guns, and doesn't really believe that gun owners are as honest and law-abiding as we are. And he's always votes wrong on guns. So he had a bill that gives the government 2 more days to delay in letting you have your gun if they can't complete your background check. Currently it's 3 days. This bill makes it 5 days. Now, for most people, you're probably not going to have to worry about this. If you're a person that typically gets a response back in 5 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, it's not going to affect you. But those people that are historically delayed because they've got a name that matches somebody else, the system is really weak in how it searches for names or how it tries to match up to see if you're a person that's prohibited. You could have to wait up to 5 days. And the irony of this is the excuse they used was the shooter in South Carolina that went into a church and killed a bunch of people. And then, it turned out that it took the FBI 2 months to figure out that he was a prohibited person. So 5 days wouldn't have made any difference. So the very case they use as an example of why we need this, it wouldn't have fixed it. Well, welcome to the world of gun control. So
here's the problem with that law too. These are not days, consecutive days. These are business days. So when I put in a background check and it's delayed, at the bottom of the page where the state gives me that delayed response, there's a date that I can transfer the gun without a disposition. So if it's on a Friday, then you count Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday you can transfer the gun. Well, take for instance this year when we had Christmas holidays in there, instead of it being 3 days, it was actually 9 days before the gun could be transferred without a disposition. And in this particular situation that we're in with COVID and with a lot of courts not functioning, they have people that are working remotely, they're not going into the office, things like that. If the state police has to send a request to another state, it could be several weeks before they get a response back. And with the 5 days now, if you have the same situation where you have Christmas and New Year holidays on a Friday, that could extend it out to 12 days before you can transfer that gun without a disposition. And I actually had one situation where somebody had bought a gun and I didn't get the disposition back on him for 3 weeks. Because of the COVID, because they were waiting for a response from another state, from a court in another state. And a dealer has the option of transferring that firearm or not transferring that firearm. And they can also call the state police and say, what's the problem here? And the state police will say, I'm comfortable with you transferring that gun without a disposition, or I'm not comfortable with you transferring that gun without a disposition. So you have some assistance there, whether or not to go ahead and make that call.
Yeah, and logic need not apply or facts, because last year in 2020 they looked at that as an example. Not one single case in Virginia where a gun was issued to a person because they waited more than 3 days was ever turned out to be a criminal where they had to go get the gun back because he was a prohibited person. Zero cases last year in
Right.
Virginia.
As a matter of fact, nationwide there were like 235
Yeah. Out of millions
in the whole year, and out of record-setting sales every single month for the last 14 months. And they had 235 cases nationwide where they had to go and retrieve the gun because it was released to the buyer without a disposition, and then it came back denied afterwards. And that's not to say that those denials weren't overturned later.
That's true too, and there's a large percentage of that. Looking at the comments here, George Washington is in Missouri and sends us much love from there. Well, George, get your butt back to Virginia. We need some help here fighting this. What are you doing in Missouri? All right, so let's look at some of the. So on the positive side, there was COVID struck again. Many people were trying to get in their online training class to get their concealed handgun permit towards the end of 2020. And a bunch of them did that. There was, I guess they did record numbers of those in the last few weeks as those procrastinators finally got going. But then some people, a lot of them went to, again, procrastinating or getting in there late. They tried to go to their local clerk's office, circuit court clerk, to apply for their permit. And lo and behold, the clerk's office was closed because of COVID and the holidays. And so they couldn't get in before January 1. Or like here in Chesterfield, they had, for example, one of the persons wanted to hand it over to the clerk's office, and they were told by a police officer there that they had to put their application in this mailbox that they had for the clerk. What they didn't tell the person was the clerk wasn't going to even look in that mailbox till after January 1. So they had tried, but they couldn't get in. So Delegate Runyon put in a bill that says that if you took your course before January 1 and couldn't get in to the clerk's office before January 1 due to COVID or other extenuating circumstances, that you'll have till the end of April to do that application with that online training. That
was pretty fair.
Yeah, and it had an emergency clause, which is the first time I've seen a gun bill with an emergency clause. Normally when the governor signs a bill into law, it doesn't take effect till July 1. So we can all agree that would be pointless if the bill went into effect on July, but giving you till the previous April to do this. So it's an emergency clause, which means as soon as the governor puts his name on it, it instantly becomes law. And so then as soon as he signs it that very day, people could begin to apply for their permit. So that
will
go ahead.
Will he sign it?
I would expect he will. This thing cleared. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but as I recall, it cleared easily with a veto-proof majority. Now, veto-proof majority really doesn't mean veto-proof majority, because sometimes when a governor vetoes something, people in his party sometimes chicken out going up against him and will reverse their vote and won't override him out of political concern.
Right.
However,
and it's important to note on this that you had to have made an attempt to put your application in before January 1st and been given some reason why you couldn't. Either you couldn't get an appointment before the 1st of January or something to that effect. But you had to have made that attempt ahead of time.
So I expect the governor will probably sign this, considering the amount of support for it, and it's temporary and all that stuff. So I expect he will. So those
we can send a letter from the VCDL and dare him to not sign it.
Yeah, reverse psychology.
Yeah.
So if you're in that,
Chris Stacy is asking. He says, long expired permit and wonder if I need another course. No, you are in renewal. There's no provision for length of time that your permit was expired or your permit has to still be active or whatever. Once you've had that permit, it is a renewal, and all you need is your expired permit to apply for your renewed permit. Your training never expires.
Yeah, it's viewed as if you're applying brand new, but doesn't matter because you have that permit to show that you have the training. At least that part of it's irrelevant. So,
Even if you don't have the permit, they have record that you had a permit, and that's proof enough.
yeah,
Right. And the way that state law says, hunter's education course qualifies you as proof of training. So you can take a hunter's education course when you're 12, and then when you're 30, use that certificate to apply for a concealed handgun course. How's that for logic for you?
Yeah, well, none of this makes any sense, including getting rid of online training during a COVID attack.
Right.
How did that make any sense?
So, Chris, since you don't have to pay for training again, send that money to vcdl.org/donate.
There you go. So
Yeah.
let's look at some other bills. There's only one bill from the Senate that's in the House, and that bill bans guns in Capitol Square and in state government buildings. Now, that one is Senator Ebbins' bill, which was much more restrictive than Mark Levine's bill in the House. This narrowed it to just the actual Capitol grounds and the buildings on the Capitol grounds, like the Capitol itself and the General Assembly, and some of the state agencies that are on there. And it included state agencies. So DMV and heck, even a rest area, as I would read this, is covered. So if you go to rest area after this, if this becomes law, then you'll have to leave your gun in the car. You won't be able to take it in with you. So, which is totally, well, it's all idiotic. I mean, there's no way you can justify this stuff. It's all baloney. They've had no problems in state agency buildings. They've had no problems at the Capitol, and yet they're doing this. Meanwhile, they got another group of people burning down Richmond, and that's okay. But they're worried about you and I, which have done nothing wrong. So anyhow, but what's happened is interesting. The equivalent bill. Okay, so let's see. That's how it was done with the Senate bill, and that bill was converted in the House to match Levine's much more restrictive bill. Meanwhile, Levine's bill from the House, which had all these extra restrictions, what his did is it did the restrictions on the Senate version, but it also added the streets and sidewalks. So if you're walking down 9th Street, on the opposite sidewalk from the Capitol, that would be an off-limits area. If you're walking on Broad Street along the part that abuts the General Assembly and the Capitol, you couldn't carry on the sidewalk there or technically be driving down the road there with the gun in your car. And Bank Street and Governor Street, those were all covered under Levine's. Well, so they added those to the Senate version that's over in the House right now. And the Senate did the opposite. The Senate took Levine's bill and stripped all that out and made his bill match the Senate's version, the much less restricted version. So what does this mean? This means that now if these bills pass each body in that format, and it's a very good chance they will, you now have a clash where the bill says one thing in the House and says another thing in the Senate. They're not the same bill as they went in. Each bill was modified from what it originally began as and how it passed the body that it was introduced in. So this means you're going to have a situation where one body or the other is going to have to concede to the other body. In other words, the House is going to say, okay, Senate, we give in. We're going to go with what your version is, the less restrictive one. Or the Senate's going to have to give in and say, okay, House, we're going to give in. We're going to take the more restricted version that you have and agree on that. Or they both stick to their guns saying, no, we're not going with your version. If that happens, and that's a possibility, then it goes to what's called a conference committee. 3 delegates and 3 senators are put together in a little committee that meets at a random time in a random place. So there's no way to attend one of these. And they try to come up with a compromise that will satisfy both bodies. If they can't come up with a satisfactory solution, if they're deadlocked, then the bill dies. If they come up with a solution, then the solution goes back to each body. At that point, the bodies get a simple up or down. They don't get to change it anymore. They either accept what the conference committee gave them and say, yeah, we're going to go with this, or they say, no, we don't like that, and they can't change it further. So if either body rejects it, it's dead. So there's still several paths to this bill dying in either form before it becomes law. But it may not happen that way. Again, one body might concede to the other. House, I could see the House more likely conceding to the Senate, saying, well, we'll take your less restrictive one. But we'll see what happens on that. But that's the deal with state agencies. Right now, state agencies are covered by the governor's. I think it was McAuliffe that did a governor's. What am I saying? I'm trying to remember what you call it now. Basically, where he basically decrees that you can't carry a gun in a state agency. Well, his decree.
Executive order.
Executive order. His executive order was basically at pass, so that if somebody noticed you were carrying a gun and told you, and you left, you were good. This would change it to a Class 1 misdemeanor, and it would be coded in the law. Now, it does require signage be posted in the government agencies and everywhere. Otherwise, it's not applicable. So if they forget to put up a sign on the door you came through, then it wouldn't apply. But anyhow, that's the status. That's that's probably one of the worst bills out there, in my opinion.
That and the homemade gun bill.
Yeah, that's the other one. Looking at that one, and we also have an interesting one I'll be talking about shortly, dealing with domestic violence. But the homemade gun bill, that one has gone through some iterations. Your efforts in contacting and pressuring the General Assembly and all this stuff has been paying off, because it's causing bills to not just go through in these horrible formats. They're actually being worked on, the penalties changed, or the key parts of them changed in a way that's better than it was. Now, better, it doesn't mean that we necessarily still like the bill, but it's weakened how bad some of these bills are. The plastic guns, originally, it was going to simply say, if you own, the very first bill said, if you have a gun that doesn't have a serial number on it, it's illegal. That means those of you that may own a gun made by a manufacturer in the 30s or 40s or 20s, or a muzzle loader from the old days, none of those were required to have a serial number till 1968. I had a gun from Sears that didn't have a shotgun, didn't have a serial number on it, that was made just before 1968. So that gun would have been illegal. There have been millions and millions of guns out there made illegal. I don't think that that's what they were really trying to do, but it may be. But it just shows you that if nothing else, they aren't paying attention. They're just doing stuff without really knowing what they're doing and realizing the consequences. That was caught and fixed.
Even in the last committee session that they were discussing this bill, one of the senators said, well, if they take the gun that they're making, they can take it to a manufacturer and have it serialized. Well, no, you can't. That's against federal law. So these guys are making up rules, and they don't even understand the existing law and the federal law that is impacting what they're doing. Same thing.
They understand. They want you
universal background check.
So you can be like, Pat broke the law.
Mm-hmm. So haven't got any idea of the ramifications of a lot of these laws that they're
No, some of
passing.
them will affect you directly, Pat. That one in particular, because the
Absolutely.
wording on it doesn't allow Pat to purchase some of these 80% receivers and sell them into a state where they are allowed. So if they pass
Well,
this ban,
I could, because I'm an 07. I'm a manufacturer as far as the ATF is concerned. But your average gun dealer that's not licensed with the ATF as a manufacturer or an importer would not be able to purchase the 80% receivers and sell them to people in states where they were legal. And, you know, some of the interpretations of this law would outlaw plumbing pipes or the other things that can be used to make guns. So it's very poorly worded.
I think it might be ripe for a lawsuit, quite frankly.
Mhm.
But what again, pressure from gun owners, again, they haven't killed the bill. Although, you know, it's not getting an easy ride at all. This bill is coming under some scrutiny, but they did put something in there, the grandfathering, so that if you own one of these guns that isn't serialized, or you own such an unserialized receiver, or an 80% receiver before this goes in effect, it's grandfathered. However, you can't sell it, you can't buy any more, and you can't even give it away. So when you're done with it, you have to destroy the receiver if this bill passes as in its current configuration. But you can have the gun.
We have to make sure that our members are like, this is banning guns for my kids and their kids and their kids. It's not like, oh, it's okay as long as I get to keep mine.
Yes. Yeah, that's why they do the grandfathering too, to sucker in everybody going, well, you know, and a lot of people are going, okay, well, I'll just buy, you know, there's something that'd be a big rush in Virginia on these 80% fire for receivers, as people say, okay, well, if it's going to be banned, then I'm going to get mine now, and I got it. You know, that way, if I want to build one of these, but again, that gun cannot be given away, sold, and you won't be able to buy any more. And
the question remains: how do they know when you made that homemade gun?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess if you've got a receipt, you can show. But you know, the way the law is supposed to.
If you made it, put the stamp right here. If I made this on this day.
Yeah. You know, the way the law is supposed to work, the government's supposed to show that you bought this or produced the gun later. I think what they've said is I think the way it's written is if you've got the receiver, even though you haven't completed it, you're okay. You don't have to have it complete by July 1. You'd have to have in your possession one of these 80%ers, whether it's completed or not, by July 1. But again, this allows people to have guns that the government doesn't know about. Oh, no, we can't have that. No, that's exactly what we need. The government doesn't need to know what gun we got. It's none of the government's business. It's our private property. It's protected by the Second Amendment, bequeathed to us by God. No, the government doesn't need to know, and that's why they want to close this. You know, they say, oh, but these guns show up at crime scenes. Well, you know what? A serial number doesn't prevent a crime at all. All it does is allow the gun to be returned to the lawful owner. And so if there's no serial number on there and you lose your gun, well, you're not going to get it back. Oh, well, then you should have put on your own little serial number so you had something to tell the police when it was stolen so they could get it back to you. But
and a serial number doesn't solve a crime. It almost never solves a crime. Now, the one case where it possibly could help solve a crime is in gun trafficking. If you get somebody that buys a bunch of guns, several guns turn up in crimes all over, and you find that the serial numbers all lead back to one original purchaser, it could potentially there. But if you look at FBI statistics, the trace data and what it actually does, it almost never solves a crime, but the useful part of it is returning the gun to its rightful owner if it's recovered later.
And the question is, why put everybody through this just for, stopping some gun trafficking? I mean, you got millions of people being affected by things like this, by these kind of laws, and why are you stripping them of their rights? The police just have to do as good a job as they can. They've been doing all right up to now.
Because somebody made up the term ghost gun and it sounded scary.
Like I said in committee, unserialized guns have been around since this country was founded. Even if you didn't make them, you could buy them.
And by the way, homemade guns have been around since this country was founded.
Yeah, and
that's how Browning got started, and Colt got started, and Smith and Wesson got started, and all of the firearms manufacturers today. They all started with some guy in his shop or barn or forge or whatever that invented a new firearm.
Yeah, and so even if they, I don't know, they could still, they could probably still do gun trafficking anyhow. I mean, they can always get a serialized frame and then wipe out the serial number as well.
Yeah, there is that.
Modern technology, though, can usually pull that out depending on how good of a job they do. When you compress the serial number into metal, it actually changes the composition of the metal down deeper than where the print ended. But anyhow, again, do we give up our rights just so they can keep catching criminals, or do the police just need to do their job and catch criminals without us giving up all of our rights to do that?
Well, I find it ironic that the mantra has been for a long time, I would rather let one murderer go free than to put innocent people in jail. And yet, when it comes to us evil gun owners, they would rather see us all turned into criminals instead of allowing the freedom and the Second Amendment rights. So I don't get it.
Yeah, you watch right now they're busy lowering penalties and getting rid of mandatory minimums and getting rid of the death penalty, all this stuff. But for gun stuff, we're getting new felonies thrown in. Yeah, they're throwing them in like nothing, So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth on this. Oh yeah, we need to rethink our legal system, and except for gun owners, those people we can we can totally go after them and throw them in jail forever.
And with them, they say, well, if it saves one life, then it's worth making millions of people criminals.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, the way it is, actually the way it is that our government structured so that we would rather see 15 criminals go free than one innocent person go to jail. That's how the system historically has been, and why it's unlike other countries, the government has to prove that you've done something. You don't have to prove you're innocent unless you're a gun owner. Then you got to prove you're innocent. Well, when did you make that plastic gun? Well, you need to prove to me, the government, when you made that. No, the government, you need to prove I didn't make it in the time frame that you're saying I did. You need to prove that.
Well, even going through the background check is having to prove your innocence before you can exercise a Second Amendment right.
It's true.
It's being assumed guilty until you prove your innocence.
Yeah. I think maybe the General Assembly should go through a background check every day before they show up for work, just to make sure. I mean, something could happen, and one of them could do something and be disqualified.
Or an IQ test.
No, I think really if they could honestly get a 95% on a quiz on the Constitution, that would cover it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee them a lot of them would flunk it big time.
Shucks, I'd settle for 70%.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of them think it's for thee, but not for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a bill also that dealt with allowing the school boards to treat their buildings and their grounds and their meeting rooms like they were a school with children in them. So it was the bill as it went in was a felony if you carried a gun in the parking lot or in the building of a school board. A school board is a bunch of adults in offices, just like the rest of you people in offices doing jobs. And their meetings are almost always adults meeting with the school board. So this ludicrous. So again, under pressure from you guys, the bill has been modified. It's still alive. It should be dead, but it's alive. But what they've done is they backed off on it. It's no longer a felony. In fact, they didn't list the penalty. And my understanding is if they don't list a penalty in Virginia, that means by default it's a class 1 misdemeanor. So they've lowered it from a felony to a misdemeanor. And I believe they changed what's covered under that bill. Now, they still require you to have, if you get out of your gun has to be left in the car unloaded. We have got to get through to these people. In fact, I think that's got to be a priority thing. We've got to get the unloaded language out of the school law and out of this if this thing ends up passing. They, again, and the people pushing this claim that they are gun safety advocates. Well, they're anything but gun safety advocates. Everybody out there that owns a gun, especially those of you that own semi-automatics, know that if you're going to ever have a discharge that you weren't expecting to have on your gun, it would be when you're loading or unloading it during that process, especially when you're cramped up in a vehicle. With a semi-auto, you have to rack the slide to unload it. Well, that casing will go flying somewhere in the car, landing between the seats, on the floor. Who knows where that, or out the window? I mean, who knows where it's going to land? And consequently, some people will try to open the slide much slower so the ejection comes out with less force. But then you can end up with a situation where it doesn't eject at all and ends up jamming. And now you're clearing a jam in a vehicle, near school property. You're basically, the government is asking for somebody to accidentally set off their gun and either kill themselves or kill somebody else.
You're asking them to handle a loaded firearm in a situation where there may not be a muzzle safe direction.
True, that's true too. Look, even Illinois, for crying out loud, says that you don't have to unload your gun on school property. You just have to lock it in your vehicle out of sight. That's all they need to do is say out of sight, locked in the vehicle. Leave it loaded. Don't make the person unload the gun. That is so stupid. And we really need to start hammering them on this because we need to reverse that. We need to get that out of the school bill and out of this if it passes. I don't know if we'll be able to do anything about it before it, it's either killed in one body or the other, or signed into law at this point.
So, Philip, do you want to take the Facebook question or me?
I didn't.
Have we heard anything why the Facebook ban? So here's what happened. We've been maintaining two presences on Facebook: the VCDL page with 70,000 followers, and the VCDL group with 18,000 followers. The page is kind of like the alert. We put stuff out on the page that we find of interest. It has to do with guns. It might not be Virginia only, blah, blah, blah. Then the group is where we have some back and forth chat in the group. And when some laws came through that people did not like, they became very boisterous in the group. They really can't on the page because that's kind of locked down to us. But in the group, they'd be like, here's what we ought to do, and here's what we should say. And we decided, as myself and a group of 8 admins, which I thank very much for everything they've done, that we decided to make all posts on the group moderated. So if you say something about gun rights related Virginia, blah, 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 and it's good to go, we would let that through along with the comments. But if you decided what we should do in Richmond that we probably shouldn't really do, then we did not allow that post to go through. Right before the election, as we're all signing in to do our normal scans of everything was locked down. And then our own personal Facebook pages were locked down and removed. Facebook came back like a day later and said, whoops, that was a mistake. You got caught up in this big net that we threw out, so everything's back to normal for you guys. But for over a year, things have not been normal on the page. We can't advertise. We can't boost our promotions. We can't boost our quote unquote Facebook and YouTube lives, which is why we're only on YouTube tonight. So that's happened 2 or 3 times now. This last time, when I would just post something like, watch us live on Thursday night, I'd get a boom, you've been warned, you can't chat for 3 days, blah, blah, blah. So we made a decision to take the page down ourselves until all of these algorithms get fixed or blown over, or they're not looking for the word VCDL or gun anymore, just to stop it. Because a lot of these people that moderate these accounts for us have their baby pictures of their kids and their grandkids and their cancer and their firstborn, and all of that gets lost if their page gets shut down. So we decided to focus more on the YouTube channel and our MeWe and Gab and Freedom Lake and Twitter and LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is soon going to be carrying our live broadcasts in simulcast with YouTube. So we are everywhere else on the internet also. So we're not hanging all of our fruit in Facebook's tree. So you can go to vcdl.org, and at the top of the page, there's a link that says follow us on the following social media. We're not telling you you have to join MeWe or Gab or Freedom Lake, but you have a choice of 10, and one of them we expect you'll like. And if you want none of it, go to the vcdl.org/va-alert and sign up for our very own email list where you don't have to be on any social media. And besides that, if you go to vcdl.org and you're a member, you can sign in at the top right corner of the page, sign in, and then there's a members area where you can go to your own members only forum and chat amongst members, and you won't get all the trolls and all the other stuff that's out there. So sorry for such a long answer, but I wanted to be thorough.
Yeah, it's complicated. And as far as Facebook goes, who knows? It's a bouncing ball. In fact, I was recently interviewed and basically quoted that, saying it's a bouncing ball. Tomorrow we're on, next day we're off, we're on, and each time Facebook apologizes. Oh, well, first they say, oh, you've done something so horrible, we can't tell you what it is, and we can't possibly reinstate you because of the horrible thing that you did.
You're banned for life.
Right. And then 3 days later, you're back up.
Well, oh, no, we made a horrible mistake. Actually, you didn't do anything, and we can restore you. And then you're down again. Oh, you did this horrible thing. And you've done, it's one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing as best we can figure out. Let me talk about another bill here. This is an important one. HB 1992 is a bill that takes away gun rights for misdemeanor domestic violence. Now, it's a complicated issue. But believe it or not, that bill in the right configuration could be supported by VCDL. And some of you might go, what? And for those that may not be aware of the issue, the problem is federally, if you get a misdemeanor domestic violence conviction, federally, you lose your gun rights. And you don't get them back until the state reinstates your gun rights and your civil rights, and then the feds will give you back your rights. The problem with Virginia is right up to as of now, we don't take away your gun rights for misdemeanor domestic violence. You're charged with it, but the state does not take away your gun rights, but the feds do. So it doesn't matter, you lose either way. And the problem is that if the state doesn't take away your rights, then the state can't give them back to you. Does that make sense? I can't give you back something I never took from you. And so if it can't give you back your rights, then the federal government says, well, then we just can't give you back your federal rights because you didn't get them reinstated. They don't care that they were never taken away. All they care is that they have to be reinstated for the federal government to be happy. So the reason that this bill would be something we could support is that if it only took away the same rights from the same group of people that the federal government getting a domestic violence against another spouse or against a live-in boyfriend or girlfriend, or it's a very restricted group of people. And it had a way to restore your Virginia rights over that, then that would fix the federal problem for people. Now, so the bill was modified. Again, we put a lot of pressure on there over this issue. And the claim is that the version that's out there right now in the Senate does match federal law, but our attorneys have said not quite. There's at least one case that they don't cover, and that's domestic violence with a child or a parent. I guess it probably goes both ways. And it needs to cover that ideally. And the way the bill is written now, it automatically gives you back your rights after 3 years, unless you've done something else to goof that up. But if you keep your nose clean, or maybe you didn't do anything wrong in the first place, but were falsely convicted, either way, in 3 years, you get your rights back. And the argument on the floor was that the way they've done the bill is that it would get your federal rights back. Our attorneys, and I've talked to 4 of them, are not so sure of that based on case law in Virginia and in some other states as well, that implies that the state has to take away not just your gun rights for misdemeanor domestic violence, they have to take away all of your civil rights, your right to vote, your right to be a notary public, your right to be in office, and there's what's the other one? Can't remember the 4th one, but all of that has to be taken away too at the same time, and then all of it restored. And then the federal government is satisfied according to case law. Now, the Supreme Court has not made a real ruling on that yet. So they need to step in and indicate which is it. If they just take away your gun rights and give you back your gun rights, is that good enough at the state level to satisfy the federal government? Or indeed, do they have to completely strip you of your rights at the state level and restore all of those rights at the state level before you get your gun rights back at the federal level? I would argue the first one, that it should only be gun rights. They're taken away, they're given back. What does the Fed care about the rest of the rights? So, but that's again the courts interpreting the law, and so the way they've got it set up, basically the explanation was, well, this should cover it, and they specifically said that, and this included some of the gun controllers said, yeah, this will reinstate the rights of people at the federal level. So I guess the bottom line on this is, if it passes in the mode it's in, we don't know if this will actually work, and we may have to wait for the U.S. Supreme Court to rule before we find out if it actually reinstates the rights for people. And anybody that gets charged with a child and domestic violence, they may still be stuck out in the cold, because right now the state isn't taking away their gun rights. And I don't know why that's. I think somebody misinterpreted something, but that's not in there. So we're just going to have to wait and see. In the meantime, it's possible that something could still be changed in this, but we'll have to see. So it's a very, very odd situation we find ourselves in. Believe me, it's contrary to VCDL's philosophy for all of us to say a misdemeanor should ever take away any of your civil rights. That is why we have misdemeanors, to leave our rights alone, because by definition, a misdemeanor is a minor crime. It is not a serious crime. And in Virginia, you could be charged with misdemeanor domestic violence for touching somebody, like touching your husband or your wife when they didn't want you to touch them. I mean, not hurting them at all. You could be charged that simply, or throwing a pillow at somebody. So that's the insanity of taking away a civil right over that. Really, that really makes no sense. And again, at a time when they're trying to make our laws, where there's less severe penalties for a lot of things, they really need to. Now they're coming in with this. But if it will help at the federal level, we'll support it. And the reason we'll support it is because we can't turn our backs on those gun owners that get caught in this situation and say, well, tough luck. Philosophically, you're just going to have to lose your gun rights forever. I can't go along with that. I don't think, and the board doesn't want to go along with that concept either.
So Benjamin is saying, I do not want to ask the state to remove more rights than needed just so we can get them back. This particular bill, the last time I looked at it, had an automatic restoration after 3 years.
Right.
So you didn't even have to go back to court. It was just automatically your rights were restored after 3 years. And to me, I'll give up a little bit in the short term to get a lot in the long term.
Yeah, and if it protects,
that's my take on it.
yeah, we want to. Look, the federal government's out there taking away your rights, whether you like it or not. It's taking away your gun rights. This
Right.
allows this puts light at the end of the tunnel. There isn't a locomotive coming at you, but at least you've got some light at the end of the tunnel as you try to walk out of it.
So as we talk about all these legal issues that are coming your way with whether you get jacked up in a situation or whatever else, Pat Webb and some others have put together a legal plan comparison sheet that's on our Facebook page, not on our Facebook page, on our web page. There is a link in the chat, vcdl.org/legal-plans. You can look through and compare. You see us sometimes talk about CCW Safe or US Law Shield or many of the others, and we all have our own preferences, but not all of the plans apply to everybody. So that's why we did the comparison. It's on our VCDL page. The link's in the chat. Go look at that yourself, because for $10, $12, $15 a month, depending on the plan, you might get unlimited coverage if you have to shoot and you need an attorney. Or even if you don't have to shoot, but you just get jacked up in one of these new laws and you thought you're doing the right thing, it's a lot easier to pay that $10, $15 a month than to get caught up in something and then look to VCDL to try and fund your defense.
Yep. And the comparison plan will be updated in the next 6 months or so. Right now, I've had my hands full working on a new website for VCDL that will offer some new members only benefits once you log into the website. So for those of you that are paid members, stay tuned. Pretty soon, in the next probably 6 weeks, you'll be getting an email letting you know that we're moving over to the new website. You'll have new login credentials and new members only areas and different things that you can do there. So stay tuned on that.
If you're not a paid member, how could I become one?
Well, that's pretty easy. Go to vcdl.org/join.
What is it, like
Sign
$500?
up. It's $25 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
Best deal in Virginia.
Would that year go from September to September as traditionally in the past?
Once we port over to the new website, it will be from whatever date that you sign up, you'll get 1 year. But for right now, if you join right now, you'll get the bonus. So your membership will go through October 1st, 2022.
Okay. That's all the questions you asked me to ask you, Pat.
His middle name is Shill, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's see.
So I saw Amonis in the chat. Amonis, if you have anything you'd like to tell us about the VCDL store, please mention it in the chat so that we can cover you. If Animus is still there. Animus runs our store.
Mm-hmm. You mean Animus the troll?
I know he is a troll. He also asked if I was drinking gin, but I know some of the stuff he has from our lobby day. A lot of people returned some stuff that wasn't used, like the flags and some banners and things like that. And I think he still has that. So if you decided, even after the rolling lobby day, and you're like, man, I wish I really kept that flag, you can probably get one by going to the store.
I don't think the flags are, I don't think he put them up on the store yet, but we do have the window flags, and we do have some of the big flags. So you can email Bruce at vcdl.org. That was Bruce at vcdl.org. And if you're interested
in the chat, his suggestion is buy. Because
yes.
the more stuff that's in his house, the less places he has to fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know how he gets to the bathroom. He must have a Depends or something. His rooms are, I mean, everything's jammed right now. So much stuff coming in.
Yeah.
We need to be thinking about next year too. I mean, odds are we're going to have some sort of a rolling thing next year. Now, whether it'll be the same, that's up for we're looking at some other options. But having caravans still heading to Richmond might well still be something we're going to be doing. So if you got a flag, if you don't have that kind of stuff like flags and stuff to decorate your car for next year, it's a good time to get them. And you can put them on anytime to drive the gun controllers nuts.
Right. So Benjamin says, watch out for legal assistance insurance that does not pay anything unless you were first declared innocent. Benjamin, all those questions were asked in that survey that's on our website. That
it all depends on which plan. Different plans cover different things.
That's right. So go to that survey and check out the comparison between the plans.
Well, I hate to torture.
And the plans that were not around then, so they'll be added in the future.
So
I hate to torture everybody with this, but I don't know that we answered all the store questions correctly. So the store manager will probably be joining us in a moment. So be prepared for that, everybody.
Okay, I'm bracing. Just in case.
Hey, Bruce, be warned, one of your coworkers is on here.
Our former coworker.
Oh, a former coworker. That's better.
All right, here's another question while we wait for Bruce. Pardon the strange question. Is there any VCDL topic chatter over ham radio or future meetings? I mean, I know we used some ham radios during our event, but I don't think generally that the hams have a session, CQ, VCDL, WB4AYX.
We could, it certainly could be done. We don't have anything set up to do that,
So here's the way that works. If you come up with a good idea and you want to run with it, go ahead and run with it. And you can email leadership@vcdl.org and let us know your progress. That's how we roll. This is a grassroots organization. So people say, hey, I want to do this. I think it's a good idea. And then they do it. And we help them as they need help. But if it's a volunteer organization. So if you want to volunteer to put together a ham radio meeting for VCDL, by all means, do that.
Yeah, it could be the VCDL net or something like that. I'm a ham radio operator, so if it's in the Richmond area, I could come up and be a part of on a repeater doing something like that. I just don't have the time to head that up. But
so Teresa, Teresiana, I probably butchered that name. If I did, I apologize. Miss having lobby day sit down with my delegate and senator. Make an appointment with them. The delegates are in their home offices, from what I understand, and meeting remotely. And the senators have a room in Richmond where you can make an appointment if you're close enough to get to Richmond. So call them up, make an appointment. If you can't get actual physical FaceTime with them, then call and talk on the phone. They're handy little things.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. I fully agree with her that it's different not being able to actually meet face to face, even with the aides. It's a very strange, bizarre year we're going through right now, and it just seems remote, and that's not good when you're talking about laws being made that could very much affect your rights.
Mm-hmm.
Not good.
John wants to be in a ham group. I want to be in a brisket group.
Well, get a brisket license and you're in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where you get one of those. The FCC does the ham licensing.
Do we support anyone in particular for governor?
VCDL doesn't take a position on things like that. The PAC will make a decision once they have all the candidates have announced, then they'll make a decision at that point based upon a lot of different criteria, including any past voting record for those that have served before, or any other information that's useful in deciding where they're going to land on when it comes to gun rights.
Chris Dacey, you can be in my brisket squad.
Yeah, and Joe and Beth both say that the governor had it messed up with the road closures to bind us up in traffic. They're talking about the rolling lobby day this year. Yeah, I must admit that I was terribly disappointed in the Richmond Police Department. The state police, they did a very good job. They were helpful in a lot of ways. The Capitol Police. The Capitol Police Chief himself said he would be my contact. So, I was right at the top in dealing with them. With Richmond Police, it was more of a dismal experience. They didn't keep us posted on things. They were closing roads down randomly, so the buses couldn't make it all the way through. Things were getting all chopped up. And with no real explanation, they didn't call and say, hey, just so that we're going to have to close down Broad between this street and that street because of this reason. They didn't do any of that. We had been forthcoming with them, and they had my cell phone number. We shared everything with them, including them being able to watch the progress of the buses using the GPS system that we had. But I must say the response the other way was dismal. Unlike the other, unlike the Capitol Police or the state police. But so I'm hoping next year we get some of this stuff ironed out. No more, we warned them. We specifically told them when the buses were coming. I spread them out over a 4-hour period. I mean, if I wanted to be, if I wanted to make it tough on them, I could have had everybody showing up at noon. So instead of, one 10-mile long caravan showing up, we might have 4 10-mile caravans all showing up at the same time from different directions, totally tying up the city. That wasn't our intent. Our intent was just to be smooth, to get our message across without being totally disruptive. The buses and everybody were obeying all the traffic signals and all that. So there was really they knew we were coming. There was no reason that they got overwhelmed. They're able to handle rush hour traffic Monday through Friday. This was on a holiday, so it was probably the equivalent of rush hour traffic, but somehow they couldn't handle it. So that was a problem. And then we still have the case of the bus that was stopped and then released, and no ticket issued, no violation. So why did they stop the bus? We're working on getting some answers on that. That's been slow coming.
Because Facebook told them the bus said gun on the side?
Probably. Yet they had guns on their side, so they should have been stopping each other all day long. So that was disappointing. So I'm hoping that next year we kind of have a better relationship with Richmond. Again, I don't know what we're going to do exactly next year. We've got some ideas, and it may be a hybrid of what happened this year, but we'll see. We'll keep you posted, but there will be a lot of it, and they're not going to stop us. Well, I'm glad to see that the Bruce finally showed up in person.
Technology escapes me.
Yeah, as if you don't work in it, right?
Well, it's like you get something in one application, you got to pull it over to another and pull it over to another, and finally get it to the web page, and the web page says, well, you got to give us permission. So I look, it already has permission. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's probably run by a gun controller.
One day I'll meet Bill Gates, and I'll be able to walk up behind him and crack him on the back of the head for making some of this crap.
Yeah, he became a billionaire on all this crap.
Yeah, Trafodat. Anyway, we have a boatload of flags left, lots and lots of flags. I am due to be getting the only flags we actually ran out of were 3x5 with the Minuteman on both sides. We have more of those on order. They should be here fairly soon. And Pat started to say, but I didn't hear the whole thing, whether or not she finished it, was that once the new website goes up, then we'll be putting those in the store. They're not in the current store because it just didn't seem worth the effort of putting them in there just to swap software. So we have lots of flags. My basement has Lots of flags, an ungodly amount of flags.
So, Bruce, how can people order flags now?
Gosh, just send me an email and we'll figure out a way to get them to them. Figure out a cost or whatever, and then once I give them the number, they can always just go on the website on the store and list it as a donation. That's sometimes how I get cash in. That's how we were doing covering the donations when people wanted to pay for things that they picked up at the gun store. Is we actually have a donation tab or donation location in the store, and basically what you're doing is the quantity is in dollars. If you want to give $10, you just buy 10 of them, and that'll be listed as a donation.
Yeah, I'm picturing the burglar that comes into your basement and then looks at all the flags and all the Gun Saves Lives stuff and says, "Whoops," and tiptoes back out real quietly.
Well,
First of all, he couldn't get into the rest of your house if he wanted to because of
one of the data centers we used to have at work. They had very tall racks, and it was laid out very strangely to the point that they actually put yellow tape on the floor so you could find your way through the room, because it was like a rat maze. You would walk down a certain aisle and you're at a dead end. You're looking at racks all the way around you. And I think I need to do that in my basement, but
have a misleading one, so they do end up going in circles for a while.
Well, I kind of thought we were going to have a year like last year, so I wanted to prepare, because I almost ran out of stickers last year with all the sanctuary movement. So I currently have about 1.6 million in my basement. So if anybody has,
do you want to hold up anything that you've got that you're really trying to sell?
Well, we've got lots of everything, because last year, between the election, 1 week after the election, when that first really anti-gun bill came in, and the second week of February, out of this house, we mailed over 1,700 packages. That was a significant quantity. So I have stocked for that. So we will run out of nothing.
And sometimes if anybody's got, we'll have a stuffing party to stuff envelopes with, applications and carry cards and bumper stickers and, help get the stuff out. And he'll be like, "Okay, everybody, I'll order some pizzas. Everybody coming in on a Saturday." And 20 people will be scurrying around his living room in all aspects of the store and making it all work. So the gears all blend together.
I had them stuffing envelopes. I had them bending some displays so they would be more useful to the table. Another guy was doing some inventory on some of the mailings I had ready to go out. When I have a working party here, I truly have a working party. And the next one may be taking all the flags out of the basement and getting them to a storage place, because I literally have close to, I guess I'm up to like 80 boxes that are 24 by 24 by 10. And each box holds 125 flags, more or less. So if anybody wants to buy in bulk, we'll give you a discount for a box.
So do the gun show coordinators have flags if people want to pick them up at one of the rare gun shows?
Some of them do. Some of them went around and collected stuff from some of the distribution points. But with the gun show coordinators, it is always up to the coordinator to determine what they want to stock for their area. So if they want some, I'll gladly send them some if they don't already have some. If you're looking at picking up some at the next gun show, you might want to find out who the coordinator is by going to our contact page and asking that person, him or her, whether they're stocking them, and ask them to stock them. Now, there's a couple of types. We have one that has both the Minuteman and the GSL logo on it. And then we have another type that's straight GSL, and another type, GSL, Gun Save Lives, sorry. And another one that's just the Minuteman on both sides. Now, the ones that have both logos, that's two different ones, but I'm not separating those. So you might get, as you're standing on the, say, driver's side of a vehicle as it goes by, you may see the Minuteman or you may see the GSL, and you would have to be on the other side of the street to see the other one. I'm not going to try to sort all that out. It's just way too many.
Are you going to put them on the store though, so people that have never seen one know what they're buying?
Not the current store. The new store, yeah, that's one of the things we'll do is we will put a picture, but it's the same Minuteman. It's the same GSL. As a matter of fact, hold that thought. I have got so many, I don't have to go far, and no, I'm not in the basement. All right. This is one of the flags that we have, and it basically has a standard clip for going on the window of the car.
A magazine or a clip?
This
I was going to say the same thing.
One round. All right, Philip, let me ask you this. What's the difference between a magazine and a clip? What's your best definition? Put you on the spot.
All right,
Clip
magazine is active. It's got a spring that pushes the cartridges. A clip does not have that, and it loads a magazine. Now, there are clips out there that actually do load guns directly, but they don't have an active spring in it. That makes it.
The best definition I've heard so far, I believe, is from Mike Irvin, the CMP coordinator. And he said basically a magazine surrounds the ammunition, whereas a clip just basically holds the end. So a lot of the ammunition a lot of the casing is actually exposed. I thought that was a pretty good, because all the ones I can think of, that's pretty true. I can't think of anywhere that's not not a correct description. Yeah, you're all digging. You're all digging. I can see it. All three of them are digging.
Yeah, the Grand
is a clip, and the ammunition is exposed.
Clips are for hair.
Yeah.
Clips are for your buddy that grew up in the 1960s, so he doesn't burn his fingers. But that's another story.
I'll tell you what. When I'm at the range and the guy sitting next to me is teaching his kid how to shoot, he goes, "All right, now grab the other clip." My hairs go up because if he can't call things by the correct nomenclature, I don't know that he's going to teach the finger off the trigger when you're not ready to shoot and all the other.
I certainly hope he didn't have a CCW.
Right, whatever a CCW is.
So somebody had asked on here about hoping that the WTLGs, the watch team for local government people, were doing their job watching. And we've lost a few of them, but we still have the majority still out there. I think we've lost 3 and haven't been able to replace them yet. But it's a mixed bag. I've seen a few things come through, and I never got a warning from my WTLG in that area that they're looking at this gun bill. And then I've got others that are really on top of it. That boy, they're right in there. And as soon as there's a hiccup that says if there's anything about guns that comes up anywhere within the government locally, they're right there giving me everything I need to know. That's the kind we need, because we're depending on everybody to keep their eyes open. Don't ever assume your locality is 100% safe. You'd be surprised at things that can happen.
Quick interruption. Alan said he was going to check with Chesapeake. Chesapeake and Virginia Beach did grab some of them. So they should be okay, but you can definitely check with them and make the is it the Chesapeake show? That's the new one that's coming up. First time there. Make it a success. If it's a success, then SGK will continue to hold shows there. So this is kind of testing the waters to see if this is going to be a new location. So definitely support those folks. Russ and his crew have supported the VCDL and always provided us with tables and help us during the lean times. So help them as well, because right now things are lean for them as well.
Yeah, it can be tough on some of the gun dealers too. I mean, we've seen some closures, and it's because they sold everything. They don't have inventory. They don't have ammo. They got nothing to sell, but they still got to pay for their lease and everything else. So
right. And, I explain to people, we've fought hard to keep our costs as low as possible, our retail prices as low as possible. But I'm at an advantage because my overhead is low. But if you're in a shopping center and you're paying that rent's due every month, whether you make a sale or not. The electric's due every month. Your taxes are due just like always. And so if you don't get the volume of guns and ammo to sell, you've got to mark up what you did get more so that you make enough to at least cover your expenses, or you're going to go out of business.
Well, you
Yeah,
should be
there's
sitting pretty, Pat, because you haven't had electricity for 4 days.
It was 19 hours, but yeah.
there's an adage in the gun industry. How do you make a small fortune in guns? And the answer is you start out with a large one.
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah.
let me get back to VA Wolf for a while. He's talking about a petition to remove a senator that's not listening to the constituents. People did that with our governor. People have always said, hey, let's fill out, sign this petition, or remove the person. The thing is, the problem is the process to remove somebody is such a long process, is they'll be out of office by the time you could get fruition to the process. It's very expensive, it's very time consuming, and it doesn't always work. And all of that combined with the fact that you would get to remove the person, they'd be out of office for 2 years by the time you got there.
Yeah, and
the other thing is that it in Virginia, it has to go before a judge who is appointed by the people that you're asking him to remove from office. So it's not going to go over real well.
Yeah, he gets appointed. He gets reappointed every so many years by those people. So
Right.
it's not the way you get rid of somebody who doesn't listen to you is at the ballot box.
That's right.
You know, you vote them out, and you get your neighbors, and you get active in local politics. If they're really under your skin, get active. Run against them.
I can get rid of them with the ballot box. Does that mean I have to like grab it and beat them over the head with it, or what?
Well, I mean,
that would be battery.
Yeah,
Only if you're an anti-gun person.
That's true. They are violent. They are violent.
Yes, they are.
So,
hey guys, just something to be aware of. One of the things that the board is currently considering and we're looking at is trying to get out into other venues, in that we have pretty much kept our tables at the gun shows, but we've known for a while that we would have to branch out, and now we're looking at that. So we're going to be looking at seeing if we can get volunteers to maintain tables at everything, flea markets, grand openings, don't care what. If you can get a table there, we're going to try to have that. So the coordinators are getting assistance, and we're hoping that they have some key volunteers that are well trained enough that they could just grab the kit and take it with them to just about any place and set up a table. Because we've got these gun show kits all over the state, we want them to not gather dust. We need them to get out there. So if you guys know of a venue where you could set up a table, again, it can be a gun store, it can be a pawn shop, it can be an auto dealership. We don't care. Any type of business whatsoever. Basically, if you can get a table there, talk to your local coordinator, borrow their kit, and basically help us get the word out. We really need the boots on the ground, and you are the boots on the ground. I mean,
Right.
the store is nothing without you guys.
Yeah,
This could be wine festivals or little community days, community festivals, craft shows, all sorts of things like that.
National night out at your locality that always sneaks up on us. That sneaks up on us every year. So if you've got a national night out, hey, let us know. We'll get you some materials. We'll get you some stickers. And especially if the Million Moms are there, nothing like standing in front of their booth giving out Gun Saves Live stickers. I have upset more than 1 million of the Million Moms, put it that way.
I see a comment about that the elections aren't secure. Well, we need to keep battling that. The one thing you don't want to do is say, well, I'm not voting anymore. That's a huge win for the other side. And it's really tempting to do that, but don't fall into that trap. That is what makes our democracy and our constitutional republic work.
You can also get involved by becoming an election official. And, contact your registrar's office and get involved and make sure that the process in your locality, in your jurisdiction, is going the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, don't just roll over. I mean, it's tempting to say, well, I give up, but it's not fair anyhow. It's just that's not going to be a winning answer. That's just not going to work. It's I understand it, believe me, but it doesn't work. We need to stay in the fight. Everybody needs to vote. Boy, I tell you what, November 2nd is a chance to turn this ship around. We have a huge opportunity November 2nd. We can either blow it.
Did you say ship?
I said ship. Although, that's a good point as well.
PT, whatever.
But that November 2nd, we can actually begin to turn this around. And, if you can be involved in being at the polling place, if you can get involved with some of the parties, working for really good candidates, if you've got horrible people that you can't support in your district, then give your money to somebody in another district that is good, that needs help. In the end of the day, we just need good candidates. Whether they're your candidate or not, it doesn't matter. It matters that, and if you've got a bad one, then you definitely should be supporting some other candidate in another district that can counter the vote of your bad person. So, there's really no excuse. You've got to be active in this. This year is a huge opportunity if we don't blow it. We get a new governor, we get a new lieutenant governor, we get a new attorney general. Those three alone have done a lot of damage.
And we get people that promise to repeal all of these bills that they put through the last couple of years. They need to have a spine, and they need it yesterday.
Yeah, the General Assembly.
If you've got time and thick enough skin, run for office.
Yeah. Even if you don't win, you're gonna put pressure on the other side, no matter who you are. By running against them, they're going to have to put money and effort into trying to win. And if nobody's running against them, and this is what happened last election, then they've got all this money that they don't need to worry about because they got nobody running against them. So they give it to other candidates to help them fight in the tougher districts where there is competition. Now, we want everybody having to fight in every district to maintain their seat. It does work. It will definitely get their attention. If they have a competitor every time, they have to watch their P's and Q's. If they don't, then they can do anything they want because they got nobody to challenge them. So
if we had all those people that showed up at the sanctuary city meetings, the sanctuary county and sanctuary city meetings, run and go out and vote and work the gun shows and do everything we need, we probably wouldn't be sitting in this situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had talked to a lobbyist who's now deceased, but he told me a story about the General Assembly, and there was a delegate there that had been in for quite a few years, never had an opponent running against him. And he finally had somebody that ran against him, and he was in tears. He didn't know what to do, And you'd be surprised how many of them would be in that same mode if somebody ran against them. It's like, what? Against me? Wow, now what? Now what do I do? Oh my God. Then suddenly all their sins against gun owners would come flooding into their brain as they say, oh geez, maybe I shouldn't have gone for all this gun control. So,
well, I know we're having a good time, and I hate to be the party pooper and break up the party, but we're looking at 90 minutes now. So we should probably think about wrapping up and say our goodbyes and our good nights.
You are a party pooper.
Yeah, man. Look at all the comments. But yeah, we can cover some of this later. I always feel bad because a lot of times there's some really good questions and stuff in there, but you just can't always.
Well, we can stay. We can. I mean.
No, we probably Although I expect a lot of people aren't going to have to work tomorrow if there's ice in their area. I don't know. The roads here in Chesterfield, the roads seem to be okay. I know I had UPS come by. The mailman came by. I've seen some people driving on the streets. I didn't. I just said to heck with it. I'm not going to go out.
Bruce's mailman in UPS comes with a tractor trailer and pallet jacks.
I've had FedEx Freight show up at the end of my very steep driveway with 2 pallets full of nothing but GSL stickers. Hey, 2 things. One, to Philip's point about the one member crying, I actually asked one Republican delegate if he would carry a license plate bill for us And the guy freaked out. He started yelling at me about what a tough district he was in. And we always went to him. We were asking him for everything. He wasn't there. And this was a license plate bill. So it's amazing.
I have a Virginia delegate. I have a Virginia delegate that already said he'd carry a license plate bill for us.
Well, but again, that would just, the response is what I was talking to.
Right.
So that some of them will absolutely freak. On another note, one thing I want to say before we go any longer. Hi, Dave Brown. Yes, I saw that in chat, by the way.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Gary Mountjoy is trying to make us all feel bad by pointing out it's 70 down in Florida where he is. Well, it used to be 70 in Texas, too. You never know.
And
it's
you can't
70 here.
carry in Florida.
It's 70 here.
Unless you're going
now.
Yeah, my room is 70.
So I want to make one point. Several years ago at Lobby Day, the group that I was with, we asked one of the senators, what does it take to get your attention when it comes to people contacting you about a specific bill? And the answer was, with emails, if they get 6, 7, 8, 10 emails on a bill, it gets their attention. If they get 4 or 5 phone calls on a bill, it gets their attention. If they get 1 or 2 people taking the time to go to their office personally, it really gets their attention. So you have power when you contact your senators and delegates about this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your senator or delegate. You can contact friendly senators and delegates and tell them you appreciate them supporting our rights. But don't give up on yours just because you are stuck with Eben and Levine.
And if your delegates are doing a good job, call them and thank them. They rarely get thanked.
Absolutely. They need that. They need that ammunition and they need that boost. They need to know that you're watching and you appreciate what they're doing. I mean, they're like all the rest of us. A pat on the back goes a long, long way.
And so does $100 because you get the best politician your money can buy.
Let's see. There was I'm going to see a little chat there going on with Mike H and Peter U. Mark Levine. No relation to Ed. I have to put that in there because
Mark's a Levine and I'm a Levine.
Mark Levine, whatever. Anyhow, he apparently he ran unopposed and won with only 19,000 votes. That's pretty tiny amount to win by. So and boy, I tell you what, that would be a great person to run somebody against. Absolutely great person. That would
yes, and wouldn't it be good to get him out of there?
Wow,
Fred Van Clive.
I'm buying champagne and getting soused if that happens.
Yes.
Would you say, Ed? I said
we could have one of my friends like Mike Van Clive run against him.
Yep. So anyhow, I guess we'll let people go, but hopefully everybody out there will maintain their power. Unlike Texas, unbelievable what's happened.
This video will remain on our YouTube channel, so you can grab the link, share it with your friends, share it in your groups, and they don't have to watch our pretty faces. They can just listen to the content as they're driving to and from work and sliding around in the ice.
That's scary, Bruce.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I go to my barber. She says, "What kind of haircut do you want?"
Thank you for your help. Thank you for everything.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, folks.
Thanks for having me on, Ed.
Sure thing.